We all do stupid things when we're in college. My roommate and I let two strange guys into our dorm at 1 o'clock in the morning because they heard our building's attic was haunted. Soon after that, we were all jammed into a car headed to a supposedly haunted bridge. We didn't see any ghosts that night, but I did marry one of those guys. Justin, a 6'6" tall, goofy white guy with the most beautiful eyes I'd ever seen up close. 12 years later, we're still going strong. I'm a control freak, so when we decided to start a family, I took my basal body temperature, used ovulation tests, and there was sex, a lot of sex. And then a positive pregnancy test. At our first doctor's appointment, my doctor dropped a bombshell. You're having twins! When we heard the heartbeats, two fast, pitter-patter heartbeats that sounded like an amateur beatboxer, my whole world shifted. I was indescribably in love. At 16 weeks, we found out we were having girls, and everything was going great. But at 25 weeks, I began bleeding. We rushed to labor and delivery. I received steroid shots to boost my baby's lungs in case they arrived early. 2 mornings later, my water broke. Attempts to stop my labor failed. I needed an emergency C-section. Within minutes, I was wheeled into an OR. The lights were blinding, the room was buzzing, and even though I was surrounded by medical staff, I felt alone. Then Justin walked through the door. His eyes met mine, and he kneeled beside me. I love you, he said. We were in this together. Without time for an epidural, I was given a spinal tap. It was a strange feeling to be cut into, not feeling any pain, just constant tugging and pulling. Within seconds, my daughters were placed into incubators and whisked off to the NICU. Do you want me to stay? Justin asked. No, go with them, I urged. My labor and delivery nurse must have seen the fear in my eyes. Your daughters are in the best place possible, she said, taking my hand. She didn't say that they would be fine, because no one knew if they would be. Madeline and Leighton, a mere 1 pound 8 ounces and 1 pound 10 ounces, were micro preemies. They had a 50% chance of survival. We could lose one of them. We could lose them both. Finally, I was wheeled to the NICU. Enveloped in blankets and a tangled mess of wires, my baby's tiny bodies were swallowed by huge incubators. Their skin was thin and transparent, and their eyes were sealed shut. Their hands were as big as my fingertips, and their arms and legs were so small that Justin could have easily slipped his wedding band over them. I'd never seen such beauty. After 5 days, I was discharged, wheeled out with empty arms. As we drove away, I felt my heart breaking more with every passing mile. The next morning, we went back to the NICU, a somber place with its own language, ROP, A's and B's, IVH, CBC, CPAP. Justin and I spent nearly all of our time there, watching our babies in plastic boxes, holding their tiny hands through the portholes, telling them we love them over the hum of the ventilators. While most parents can touch their babies when they're in pain, I couldn't soothe mine that way. I felt powerless. So our days revolved around touch times, designated times when we were allowed to touch our daughters, changing their diapers, checking their temperature. And aching for any semblance of normalcy, I settled for these small snapshots in time. The NICU is like a roller coaster. Just twists and turns came without warning. Each day, we didn't know what we were walking into. Had their conditions worsened? Was it our last day with our girls? One day, Justin and I walked in to see the head neonatologist waiting for us. He told us Maddie had a brain bleed on the right side of her brain. On a piece of paper, he drew a diagram. Brain bleeds are ranked on a scale from 1 to 4, 4 being the worst. Maddie's bleed is a 4, he said. Grade 4 bleeds can cause learning disabilities, developmental delays, and cerebral palsy. I clutched the scrap of paper that the doctor had written on and cried. Was this really happening to our daughter? Thankfully, Maddie's condition never worsened. We were lucky. On Easter, when Justin and I walked into the NICU, the nurse looked over at me and asked me what I'd been waiting to hear. Are you ready to hold Layton? It took 3 people to place Layton in my arms. But when I felt her on my chest, I cupped her tiny head in one hand and wept. Softly kissing the top of her head, I wrapped my hands around her small frame. A few weeks later, I held Maddie, gently scooping her up in my hands and pulling her to my chest. Feeling her heart beating against mine, I watched the monitors and saw her numbers instantly improve. Snuggled up close, she fell asleep. I reveled in her sweetness. I never wanted to let go. These moments holding my daughters transcended any word or feeling. Happiness, joy, love, bliss, all of those and more. On that car ride home, after I was discharged, when my heart shattered into a million pieces, it was breaking to make room for the strongest love I'd ever known. At home, I couldn't sleep. I'd hear alarms in my dreams and jolt awake, calling the NICU, checking on my girls. And I was pumping breast milk every 2 hours, holding on to the one thing I could do for my girls. In the NICU, I met a mother whose twin boys were also born at 25 weeks. We formed an instant bond. Her friendship became my lifeline. On a particularly tough day, she sent me a text. I know your journey seems endless, she wrote, but the hits, the tears are so worth it. You'll be home soon. After 3 unbearably long months, we brought Layton home on Father's Day. We were overjoyed, but there was a heart-shaped hole where Maddie was supposed to be. A few weeks later, though, Maddie came home too. When I was pregnant, I read all the books, wondering what kind of mom I'd be. A helicopter mom, a laid-back mom, a working mom, a stay-at-home mom. At our girl's first birthday party about a month ago, Maddie smashed her hands into her cake, her hazel gray eyes lit up with excitement as icing flew everywhere. Layton cautiously pressed her chubby little hands into her cake, shoving a handful in her mouth, pieces sticking to her chipmunk cheeks. In watching those moments, I realized exactly what kind of mother I am. One who takes nothing for granted, who cherishes every second. We didn't know if our daughters would survive, and we don't know what challenges lie ahead. But today, I'm grateful, because it's one more day with my girls. Every day with them is the icing on the cake.